What if everything you were ever taught about earning money was completely backwards? What if the reason you are exhausted, underpaid, and still counting down to your next paycheck has nothing to do with how hard you work and everything to do with a mental trap that was set for you before you even started your first job? And what if the man who cracked the code on this trap lived 3,000 years ago, wrote it all down in a book most of us own but rarely apply, and never once traded a single hour of his life for a paycheck? His name was Solomon, and today we are going to decode exactly how he escaped the system that is quietly draining the life out of millions of hardworking, God-fearing people right now. Meet a man I will call David. Not the king, just an ordinary 38-year-old living in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia. David worked hard. He always had. He started his first job at 16, worked his way through college, landed a corporate position that paid him a salary he was genuinely proud of when he first got the offer letter. He made decent money, not rich, but comfortable, or so he thought. Then one odd Tuesday morning in February, his company announced a round of layoffs. By Thursday, David's access badge stopped working. 14 years of loyalty, 14 years of early mornings and late nights, and it was over in 72 hours. He had no savings that would last beyond 4 months. He had no income streams outside of that one job. He had no system. He had no plan. He had only the terrible, sinking realization that he had been running a wheel his entire adult life, and the moment the wheel stopped, he had nothing to show for it except a collection of pay stubs. David's story is not rare. David's story is the story of the American middle class. And if you are watching this right now and feeling that knot in your stomach because something in that story sounds uncomfortably familiar, stay with me, because what I am about to show you from the book of 1 Kings is going to change the framework through which you see every single financial decision in your life going forward. The salary trap is not just a financial problem. Let me define it clearly before we go deeper. The salary trap is any financial arrangement in which your income completely stops the moment you stop working. One stream, one source, zero leverage. And the moment that source disappears, whether by layoff, by illness, by the economy, or by simply growing old, you are left with nothing but the memory of how hard you worked to build someone else's dream. Solomon never allowed himself to be caught in that trap, not for a single day of his reign. And the reason why is buried in a conversation he had with God at the very beginning of his story. A conversation that contains the single most powerful financial principle in all of Scripture. 1 Kings chapter 3, verses 11 through 13. God appears to Solomon and gives him what sounds like an impossible offer. Ask me for anything you want. And Solomon, this young king who has just inherited the most powerful kingdom in the known world, does something that defies every natural human instinct. He does not ask for money. He does not ask for military power. He does not ask for long life or the destruction of his enemies. He asks for wisdom, for an understanding heart, for the ability to discern between good and evil so he can lead his people well. And God's response is breathtaking. He says, because you asked for this and did not ask for riches or honor or long life, I will give you the wisdom you asked for. And I will also give you what you did not ask for, riches and honor, so that there will be no one like you among the kings all your days. Stop right there. Read that exchange like a financial blueprint, not just a spiritual story. Solomon asked for wisdom. God gave him wisdom, and then automatically delivered wealth on top of it. The wealth was not the target. The wealth was the overflow. It was the inevitable result of possessing something far more valuable than money, the ability to solve problems that no one else could solve, to see clearly what others could not see, to lead and govern at a level no other human being on earth could match. Here is the principle in plain language. Money is not a destination. Money is a byproduct. It flows toward the person who creates the most value for the most people. And the salary trap exists because it caps the value you can create at exactly 40 hours per week, at exactly the rate your employer decides you are worth. The moment you understand that your income ceiling is not set by your boss, it is set by the size of the problems you are willing and equipped to solve, the trap starts to lose its grip on you. Your first action step is this. Stop spending your mental energy on how to negotiate a bigger salary. Start spending it on this question. Instead, what wisdom do I need right now to solve a bigger problem for more people? That shift in the question is the beginning of your ascent. Now here is something I need you to feel, not just understand. Can we be honest for a moment? Most of us have been working harder and harder for years, and the gap between where we are and where we want to be has not closed. It may have actually widened. And the reason is not laziness. The reason is not a lack of faith. The reason is that we are applying maximum effort to a fundamentally broken system. You cannot run your way to freedom on a hamster wheel. You can only run faster, and running faster is not the same thing as going somewhere. Solomon did not run harder. He built differently. And the next three strategies show us exactly how. 1 Kings chapter 4, verse 7. And Solomon had 12 governors over all Israel, who provided food for the king and his household. Each one made provision for 1 month of the year. 12 governors, each one responsible for 1 full month of provisions for the entire royal household. The most powerful kingdom on earth ran on a system so well designed, so thoughtfully delegated, that Solomon himself was not the bottleneck for anything. This is the administration engine, and it is the second secret of Solomon's escape from the salary trap. Here is how most talented, hardworking people operate. They get good at something really good, and because they are good at it, more work gets added to them. They become the go-to person, the indispensable one, the one who has to be consulted before any decision gets made. And slowly, without realizing it, they become the single point of failure in everything they built. Their income is capped at their own capacity. Their growth is limited by the number of hours in their day. They are not running a business or a ministry or even a career. They are running a job that lives inside their own body and dies the moment they stop showing up. Solomon understood something that most people never grasp. The highest value thing a leader can do is not the work itself. It is designing the system through which the work gets done without them. He was not a manager. He was an architect. His 12 governors were not just employees, they were proof that Solomon had built something large enough and strong enough to function without his constant presence. In your life today, this looks like automation, delegation, and systems. It looks like building something that produces value while you are sleeping, praying, spending time with your children, or resting on the Sabbath the way God designed. It looks like asking a different question, not how do I do this better, but how do I build a system that does this without me? Your second action step is to identify the one thing in your work or your finances that requires you to be personally present for value to be created. Then ask, how do I remove myself from that equation? That is where your leverage begins. Here is a question that might make you uncomfortable, and I want you to sit with it rather than dismiss it too quickly. What are you an expert in that you have never charged for? What do you know from your years of experience, your hardships, your study, your faith journey that someone somewhere would genuinely pay to learn? Because if you cannot answer that question, you are leaving one of your most valuable assets sitting completely dormant. And Solomon would consider that a waste of the highest order. 1 Kings chapter 10, verses 24 and 25. And all the earth sought the presence of Solomon to hear his wisdom, which God had put in his heart. And they brought every man his tribute, articles of silver and gold, garments, armor, spices, horses, and mules, at a fixed rate, year after year, year after year. This is not a one-time transaction. This is a repeating, annual, automatic flow of wealth coming to Solomon from across the entire known world. Not because he was selling a product, not because he was trading his time, but because his wisdom had become so demonstrably, undeniably valuable that people were willing to travel enormous distances and pay substantial tribute just for the chance to sit in his presence. This is the world's oldest documented model of what we today call a personal brand generating passive income. Solomon did not chase the wealth. The wealth came to him because he had built something intangible but enormously valuable: a reputation, a body of wisdom, a platform of credibility, an identity so established that the world self-organized around it and voluntarily sent resources in his direction. Now think about the world we live in today. The infrastructure to do exactly what Solomon did has never been more accessible to ordinary people. A YouTube channel, a podcast, a book, an online course, a newsletter, a community built around a specific area of expertise. These are not gimmicks. They are modern vessels for the exact principle Solomon operated by 3,000 years ago. They are ways to package your wisdom, multiply your reach, and create a flow of value and therefore income that does not require you to physically show up every single time. Your third action step is to start building what I call your wisdom equity. Write down the 3 to 5 things you know more deeply than most people around you, things you have lived, studied, mastered, or survived. Then ask who in the world is desperately searching for what I already know, because the answer to that question is the foundation of your intangible asset. Start building the platform that carries it. We need to pause here for a moment, because there is something underneath every strategy we have discussed today, something that, if you miss it, you will try to apply these principles with the wrong engine and burn out before you see results. Here it is. Solomon did not operate from fear. He did not hustle because he was desperate. He did not grind because he was afraid of what would happen if he stopped. He operated from a position of settled, unshakable identity, and that identity was rooted not in his performance but in his covenant, in who God said he was before he ever accomplished a single thing. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth, and so confirms his covenant, which he swore to your ancestors. The ability to produce wealth is a covenant gift. It is not earned through hustle. It is not unlocked by the right productivity system. It flows from a relationship, from understanding that you are in covenant with the God who created every resource that exists, and that he has already committed to confirming that covenant through the work of your hands when you align with his wisdom. The salary trap is not just a financial trap. At its deepest level, it is an identity trap. It is what happens when a son or a daughter of the king forgets who they are and starts operating like an orphan, working to survive, hustling to prove worth, building from scarcity instead of abundance, making every decision from the suffocating fear of not having enough. Solomon never forgot who he was. He was an heir. He was a steward. He was a son of the covenant. And because he knew that, he never made money decisions from fear. He made them from vision, from wisdom, from the settled confidence of someone who knew that their provider was not a corporate employer or a market economy. It was the creator of the universe himself. Proverbs 10, verse 22, puts it with breathtaking simplicity. The blessing of the Lord makes a person rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. The kingdom model of wealth does not ask you to sacrifice your health. It does not require you to be absent from your family for decades. It does not demand that you trade your peace, your integrity, or your soul for a bigger number in a bank account. It asks you to seek wisdom, to build systems, to steward your gifts, and to rest in the identity of someone whose provider has never once run short. Your fourth action step is the most important one. Stop agreeing with the internal voice that says, wealth is for other people, that it is too late, that you missed your window. Replace it today with this declaration: I am a steward of God's resources. I am equipped with wisdom to create, build, and multiply. I operate from covenant, not from fear. The blessing of the Lord is increasing everything I touch. Say it like you mean it, because the ascent always starts in the mind before it shows up in the bank account. Let me bring everything together now with what we call the ascent philosophy. The salary trap is ultimately a vision problem. When your financial horizon shrinks to 30 days, the next paycheck, the next bill, the next month of survival, you make 30-day decisions. You never plant trees. You never build systems. You never think about what you are leaving behind for the people who come after you. You simply try to make it through another month. Solomon thought in generations. He built the temple not just for his own use, but as a spiritual anchor meant to serve the people of God for centuries. His wisdom, recorded in Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and the Song of Solomon, has been read by billions of people across 3,000 years. His administrative structures fed an entire nation. His trade relationships created economic prosperity that outlasted his reign. Remember David from Atlanta, the man we met at the beginning of this video? Here is the rest of his story. After losing his job, David spent 3 months in what he describes as the darkest season of his faith. He was angry, confused, and ashamed. But during that season, he started studying Solomon, not as a historical figure, but as a financial model. He realized that for 14 years, he had been selling time and calling it a career. He had been trading his most irreplaceable asset for a fixed weekly rate, and he had nothing to show for it but exhaustion. So he changed the question. Instead of asking how to find another job, he started asking what wisdom he had been sitting on. He had spent 12 years solving a very specific operational problem in his industry. He knew things that other companies were paying consultants enormous sums to figure out. He packaged that knowledge. He built a simple online presence around it. He reached out to 3 companies who faced the problem he knew how to solve. Within 18 months, David had replaced his salary without a boss, without a badge, without a wheel to run on. He was not rich yet, but for the first time in his adult life, he was building, and building always beats surviving. That is the legacy mindset. That is what the Solomon model produces when you apply it with faith, patience, and wisdom. So here is where I leave you today. Stop asking how you can earn a bigger paycheck. Start asking the question Solomon essentially asked at the beginning of his reign. God, what wisdom do I need right now? What system am I supposed to build? What gift have you placed in me that I have been sitting on because I was too afraid to step outside the safety of a salary? You were not created to spend the best decades of your life surviving month to month. You were created to steward, to build, to multiply, and to leave behind a legacy that blesses the people who come after you. The same God who gave Solomon the wisdom to govern nations, manage economies, and generate wealth that the ancient world had never seen before is the exact same God who is available to you right now in this moment. Your ascent is not waiting on a better economy, a better opportunity, or a lucky break. It is waiting on a decision to seek wisdom before money, to build systems instead of selling hours, to package your gifts instead of burying them, to walk in the identity of a covenant heir instead of a market slave. Proverbs 4, verse 7. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom. And with all you're getting, get understanding. Not money first, wisdom first. Everything else follows. Right now, in the comments below, type the words, I am a steward. Not someday. Not I want to be. I am. Declare it, own it, and watch what that declaration begins to produce in you over the next 90 days. If this video shifted something in you today, share it with one person you know who is stuck on the wheel right now. Someone who is working hard and wondering why it never feels like enough. This message could genuinely change the direction of their financial life. Hit the like button so the algorithm carries this to someone who needs it. And if you are not yet part of the Bible Ascent community, subscribe right now and join thousands of people who are choosing to rise through faith, through wisdom, through the timeless principles of God's Word. Your ascent does not start someday. It starts right now. Go and build.